Good morning. Good morning. Folks, I'm Phil Davis, Ancestry Lands, ancestrylands.com. I'm going to keep switching up the style now to make sure everybody knows they're getting newer content. I put out new content every single day, twice a day, 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time and 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, for the most part, plus or minus. We're going to get right into it today as you can watch this beautiful sunrise. Part of adapting in life. I used to travel to California once a month, worked only about 5, 6 days a month, made good enough money. And this is just a real story for everyone, because sometimes we feel that things are better. Everyone's living better than we are. And I always wanted to be said that I never got in a car, did a video with a car I didn't own. I never pretended something was mine that I didn't have. I never wanted to act like I lived in a house when I've always said that, hey, we're currently renting, but I own vast amounts of real estate. And there's reasons behind that when you look at current today's market. It's not for an inability of qualify for a mortgage, a huge mortgage. I could live in $1 million home right now, but the monthly payments don't make sense. And I say that because sometimes in life, you have a win and a loss at the same time. Sometimes you're winning and it still feels like you're losing. And I'm sure this is going to reach out to quite a few people in the world today, but it's to let you know you're not alone. And sometimes you just got to readjust or realign your thinking. You got to redefine your parameters because the parameters of what is to be normal are constantly changing. We live in the most expensive time in human history. The price of a home, the interest rates, while they are not that high, but the cost of things are at an all-time high. Eggs have never been more expensive. You might say, well, there was a time where the price of eggs were higher, but across the board, everything costs more. Your apartment rents, your mortgage payments, even for homes that are in dilapidated areas. Once upon a time, having a home in a dilapidated area would be a huge discount. Now, not so much the same. It's all intermixed now. It's only market. To build a home still costs you. The average price of a home is about $400,000 to $500,000. Let me explain something to you again. That's $500,000. $500,000, which people do not call it $500,000 anymore. They just call it 500,000. But it's still $500,000. And most people do not make close to or half or a quarter of $1,000,000. So again, yes, you could have real estate like I do. You could have a business that you are generating income, sizable income from, and you could still feel like you are losing because you don't have what the previous generations qualify as the wealth markers, which is owning a home and owning a mortgage, not having access to liquidity because that's generally always been reserved for the upper class. Not having access to second homes or secondary asset and in stocks. Typically, most people nowadays have what they call an asset, a home or a mortgage, and then they own some stocks in a form of retirement. That's where most people are. And the only other thing that they own past that, which they may or may not have the title to, is a car. So, and many of these things may be making payments on, and there's actually really no ownership. I really always, through owning land, I've really got to understand what actual ownership is. And ownership is title of, not loan due, not loan balance due. Because when I have people making payments to me for land, they don't own the property I do. They are paying off a loan which I am servicing to them. In the same way a bank services a loan to anyone that is purchasing a car or any other vehicle for operational purposes. Dude, just go, man. What are you doing? Like, good God Almighty, just gonna stay there, man. Like, go, man. Go. I ain't got time today, man. I ain't got time. Single file, single form, man. Ain't nothing there, man. Go. Driving 476 South, folks. Early morning time. Early morning rush hour, if you will, or the morning commute, as you can say. So I ask people all the time, sometimes that, and it's a heavy burden. It really is. It's a really heavy burden to feel like you are winning and losing at the same time. And the worst thing about it is that you could be made to feel even more like you're losing because typically the societal pressures, expectation from your parents, because they are living in the last vestiges of their life, looking at what it took for them to get to where they are, not realizing that the rules or the circumstances have changed in the game you're playing, that they think will always stay the same, but it's not. So you end up having a disconnect with them. And it could put you sometimes, which I see often. I've talked with some of my neighbors who are in the same situation, similar situation. And let me be clear about this, man. You might have people who live in an apartment, but that doesn't mean those people do not have cash reserves. That does not mean those people do not have life insurance in the form of IULs, term life insurance to protect themselves. It doesn't mean that they live in debt. There are many people occupying an apartment complex for various reasons. And one of the reasons for mine is that I live in an area where the homes sell for close to $1 million. 10% of $1 million is 100,000 cash as a down payment. That's not closing cost. You're putting 20% down, that's 200,000. You got closing costs attached to that too as well. You're gonna come out close to about 300K when you're done for them closing costs, because them realtors got to get paid. You better believe it. Title fees are going to be serviced quite well. You're going to be paying a pretty penny, if you will. Get in front over here, man. These roads are horrible in Pennsylvania, man. I mean, one thing I will say is that they don't let them go too bad that much longer, but you can see the amount of bumpiness that I have to deal with. But a lot of times in the winter times, these where these white lines are, they're fissures or cracks, deep cracks that can really mess your car up. If you're driving in it and you're crossing over, your car will have to make adjustments. You as a driver will have to make adjustments because it will steer your car in a different direction. So it's crazy, but they do. I will say something. These patchwork jobs, these black lines here where the white line is repainted over, they do fix that quite often. It's probably yearly done. So like I was saying about the $1 million home, I just talked to one of my son's coaches, his previous baseball coach, and he paid 1.5 for his place. Divorced. I don't even understand how, he saved all his money. He's divorced. Obviously got a child support payment. Actually, his ex-wife lives down the street. I do know it's his ex-wife. Our kids have played on the same team. I've spoken with her. So I do have that knowledge to be able to make that statement. But I mean, that house was $500,000 too. So you figure between two mortgages, you got 1.5. Even if he's not paying that mortgage because she has a job of some sort, you still are paying child support, coaching stuff because the kids play baseball, and whatever school needs are in an area that, I'm in an apartment paying for the same things. It's got a home, and whatever happens with her, anything goes wrong, he's on the hook for it because his children are attached to that. So you just, the mind boggles at what amount of debt people are holding you know. And I'm like, man, and he just bought it like in this actual market, in this heightened market, not like he bought it, 2 years ago or something like that. He bought it just now in this higher equity market, man. That's crazy, to me. I don't know. I'm like, man, that's a lot of, well, but hey, you know what? He might have it. He might just have it. I've never been a player hater, man. Never, never, never hated on no dude for having more than me. I've aspired to get to his level or find out what he did to become successful. That I have done. Let me fix these windows here, man. Get a little bit clear visible. You see the sunrise coming up too as well as I drive through. Again, folks, we're approaching the town of Haverford or Haverford, depends on how you call it, in the Upper Darby area in the suburbs of Pennsylvania. And I'm not talking about him in any disparaging ways, but it is concerning when you look at those numbers and you look at you're married, you have family telling you, why don't you own a home? You have children, you're seeing space run out because maybe you have more than one child, and you're looking at the pressure to buy a house because people really want you to buy a house because you have access to the funds or the capital to purchase. You've decided not to do it because you understand that the market, the timing is not right. It is not a good time to buy because financially, when you look at years and ahead, you might be, and I've talked with some of my neighbors before, they were offered 3-2-1 buy downs or 3-2-2 buy downs, where the first year interest rate is a certain percentage. It's lower than obviously the standard interest rate on 30 years. And then the second year it's 2%. And then the third year it's 2% again. But after that point, the payments go up, and that's what they don't think about. And again, like, people always look to this future point where I can refinance later. And I'm not going to say that's a bad strategy. I'm not going to say that at all. But what I am going to say is that it's a good strategy when you don't have so many obligations and your income is guaranteed to increase. You can't assume that a raise will be enough when you are not in control of the percentages of that raise. When you can't guarantee, and again, I mean, I've seen people do this, man, through the last recession that we had. People make big economic moves. They make big, gigantic purchases right at the point where we are either in or transitioning or fully into a recession, an economic downturn. And people will make these decisions at that time. I got to put on some heat because it is only 43 degrees outside. They will make a decision at that time that is the biggest purchase of their life because they are making an emotional decision from pressure. Father used to talk to me about that, and it does make sense. My father was very, he is, I don't want to say was because my father's not, he's still with us. My father is and taught me things that the message wasn't always refined in its delivery. But when I think back past my the palatability of the message, I do find that the wisdom was there, the intent was there. And my father used to always tell me, so Philip, when that pressure hits, man, when the stress of you don't have enough money, when the stress is you don't have enough time, when the stress is you got to pay this bill or you got to choose between a light bill, that's real pressure. It's not pressure when you spend your money on going out and you should be spending your money on saving it. It's not pressure when you are buying lunch when you should be making your lunch or bringing your lunch from home, but you don't have the preparation skills to be able to do it the night before. It's not pressure when you want to buy a BMW because you got a nursing degree and you really should be buying maybe a Camry because the payments are more affordable. You don't gift yourself a debt. It's not a gift with an expensive bill to pay because you want to show off an accomplishment and give yourself a reward. You could do that with a nice vacation. But a car looks pretty for about the first month or two, maybe the first year, I'll give you that. And then afterwards, it becomes a maintenance issue, especially if it's a high end car. Say you gifted yourself a debt, you gift yourself a gift. But it takes a mindset, like on this channel, what we talk about. The mindset has to be built. I mean, I have talked to young men, man, and tried to give them exact wisdom. But again, they invest in their own demise. They get caught up by a girl. They understand the need to protect themselves when they're entering into relationships with women, and they're making money, and they get lulled into a false sense of security. You think you're picking the right one because, again, you're her best pick. She's not your best pick. And you know, I can tell you that. I can tell you very, very quickly why. I'm going to tell you how young men make this decision, and I know that they're making a bad decision. I can easily explain this to you and this concept, because when I talk to these young men, I ask them this one question, and you see for a second the light bulb go on. And I ask them constantly, how are you with a woman who you are willing to give your bloodline to, but you will not give her your name? You will entrust her with your bloodline, but you will not entrust her with your last name. She is willing to take on your seed, but not take on your name. Priority's a little messed up. And that's, again, like I said, things have changed since my parents were young people, or young 40-year-old people. 20 years ago was a different world back in 2000. And 20 years before that, the world was a different place than it was from 2000s. Now, you might disagree, but again, having a child and having a marriage, and I'm not advocating for marriage, nor am I disparaging for marriage, but they're two different levels of existence. Because if you were only to vet her on being married, there's a reason why you didn't qualify her for that. Young men make this distinction because the thing is when they are impregnating a woman, that is based off of some level of emotion. It is not based off a cognitive awareness that I am making a financial lifelong decision here that will be attached to me, this woman, and this child for a long time. And people who have been fathers who have written off, don't you dare do it, you see me coming. You have 5 minutes to go, that you could have went. Even men who may not have been in their child's life at a younger point in their life. Now, if you see there, folks, you see right there, right where that sun horizon is coming up from, that is the city of Philadelphia. If you have not seen it before, thank you. Appreciate it. I'm going to get over because this is actually a left lane here. Thank you, miss. Go right through this thing. You see the city of Philadelphia and that skyline. I take different ways sometimes. You can see different angles of the city. See that right there in the backdrop? That shadow there? It's a beautiful view of the city. It's about the only view we're going to get before then. I'm going to try to get, the other day when I went home from Jersey, it was right at a time at dusk. Dusk, for people who are maybe not understand what dusk is. Dusk is the point where the sun is almost set and you're about to enter complete nightfall. And I saw a beautiful view of Philadelphia, man, unlike anything I ever saw before. It was completely magical. And I'm going to try to recreate that drive at that same point at night where the sun was at a great angle. The shadows of the way the city was laid out, it was beautiful. It caught me by surprise because I had never been that way in quite a long time, especially at that point at night. Now, if you take time to get off your phones and look around, sometimes you'll see the beauty of this world. But going back to what I was saying is that some of these young men, they do not make a financial decision. They do not vet. They do not ask questions. They do not ask questions that maybe don't have an answer. They get answers that can't be questioned. They don't ask questions that require follow up. They don't have a criteria or a filter list like we have in other, everything else. You can filter down. You go to Amazon, you can filter down, right? But they don't do that with the relationships they have because they're invested in the look. And again, they're invested in their own demise. Men of means are not vetting women that can be meaningful within their lives. They're not. It's stupid. To end up with a young guy in his early 20s, giving his whole youth, its income potential away to a woman that he should have vetted better because he thinks he cracked the code. He was different. He didn't wait. Best advice I ever got from a person, and they were a doctor. He said, wait till you're in your 30s to get married. He said, wait till you're in your 30s to get married. Was the best advice was a doctor, man. He was 30 himself, got married in his 30s. Great decision. It was a doctor. It was a person I would take medication orders from. Why not listen to him on that? Seemed to have made it. And there was a rationale when I asked him why. He said, because at that point, you've been experienced enough where people can't easily lie to you. They can't fool you with a good time and then ask you to make a lifelong decision at that time while you're having a good time. You would have been experienced enough that certain things don't move you the same way that they have previous times of your life. An extravagant weekend with a beautiful woman won't sway you to make a bad decision because you haven't looked past her beauty and looked into her person, because you are still consumed with her body. And it's a hard thing to do because that means you're going to pass through a lot of women who are not patient enough to wait and make sure the relationship has a good foundations. And the last part about that is, he told me, he says, who you are in your 20s will be not who you are in your 30s. If you do it right, you will be a different man. He says, if anything, 20s is pretty much, that's like a, when you go from a child to a young adult, he's like, but it's pretty much a baby adult. Like a child that's 0 to 10 is a different child that is 10 to 20. It's a way different progress when they hit what is the true teenage years. Their mind starts to shift in ways that you can definitely tell is not the same as a 7-year-old and 8-year-old. Their body goes through a different transformation at that time. And it does make sense. It really does. And I understood that. I mean, you're just allowed to drink at the early stage of 21 if you haven't been drinking before. Just put that out there because real talk is real. So you're just experiencing the throes of what an adulthood is. And I'm not saying this for women. I'm talking about men here. I'm talking to the men here about the people who need to be responsible that the women say are not men anymore. The lack of supply of available men, not males, men. Just because you are a male does not mean you are a man. Okay, I see you, buddy. Making sure he doesn't take a walking this way. So again, the availability of men is because they are not self-disciplined. Like Don Coombs said, the measure of discipline is not being instituted for whatever reason, whatever the issue is, whatever the source calls of. We could talk about that in a different video, but we are just going to discuss the fact that there is no discipline when it comes to the measure of discipline within their lifetime. They're not making decade decisions. They're not making 10-year plans. One thing that I did, I read in an investment book, I think it was called the Stock Bible. Read that in my mid-20s. And it was talked about how Asian countries or Asian businesses make 50 to 100-year plans. And some say that 50-year plans is too short of a time period. Blew my mind. Might not be able to see it, but in the far skyline, that is the city of Philadelphia. It is not a city of many skyscrapers, folks. It is not. It has some tall buildings, but it is nothing compared to New York City, which is, I mean, everything that we're in right now would be skyscraper on skyscraper. Nothing's bad about that. I've lived in New York. It's a place that has its certain appeal to certain people. So going back to what I'm saying is that 50 years was not it was too short term in many dominating Asian countries' view. It's too short plans. It's like having a 1-year plan to them. It's a some plan for 150 years. I don't even know how you can comprehend that, but they have it down. And it challenged me to look beyond what I thought was impossible, which was having a year goal, New Year's resolution, all that bull crap. I'm going to have a New Year's resolution, and this year is going to be different from the last things I failed last year on, because I ain't make it happen 1 month after my last New Year's. None of those things happen. So, but this year is going to be different. I'm going to be able to do my New Year's resolution for 2 weeks instead of 1 day. So again, like I said, is the whole point is that they are investing in success by doing the hard work, the hard math. And if you don't do that, you're making emotional decisions on the now, being pressured to make decisions because your family wants you to make a decision that they cannot make individually. A lot of times they can. They're expecting you to make the decision so that way when you make the decision, the liability, the fault still falls on you. Someone wants to tell you how to captain a ship, and then at the same time, they'll blame you when you make the wrong turn or when the ship is in danger. I don't know why you listen to me. You the captain, right? It absolves them of responsibility and accountability. And that's what I'm saying. And make sure that you're making decisions and the people involved are accountable. Because if they're not, then you're literally just following. You're not thinking. You're throwing away the financial intelligence, the business acumen, which you need to have switched on all the time. You don't need that. Never needs to be an off button, but you'll find a lot of time these guys get a BBL, big booty model, and everybody turns off. The business acumen goes off. She's in business. You're in bed. And you see these people getting caught up, like this young basketball player with this older woman that he's impregnated by that already has children. 21 years old. Not anything's wrong with it if that's the case, but it's kind of difficult when you say that this woman has a son the same age as this young man. I mean, I don't know how you feel about it, but you will once you have a child that's in that situation. Or you're the son. See, none of that stuff matters anymore. Like I talked about in my previous video before, the moral decorum, the moral compass is gone. There's no more moral decorum. There's no more social decorum. That's gone. That's evolved or devolved, if you will. So again, I say to you all, you never need to have your business acumen switch off. It needs to always be on. People turn it off all the time. They decide I'm not going to think. Now I'm just going to ride it in here because this feels good. It feels good, baby. It feels so good. And again, you have to have that same clarity afterwards. And most people don't. You're not leading with decisions in mind. It's the same way people go out to bars. You drink and you understand that, hey, I'm not able to go over a certain threshold. I've got to have emotional control and present awareness. I need to be aware of my situation when I'm going against my own grain in real time. This is one of the hardest times driving, folks, where you need to have a visor because the sun's in your eye. You could wear sunglasses, but still sometimes it doesn't help. And on top of that, the visor obstructs the view of where a light is. So you can't actually tell from this view where the red light is or if a light's turning green. So you got to kind of look to the side. That's when you see my eye, peering over this way a little bit. Look at this shit. He done hold up about 5 hours worth of traffic because he's double parked. He won't just come up here and park right at this little edge here. So again, I just went through it. Yellow there. Same situation. I mean, I knew it was a yellow. But I got to kind of get through these things. All these lights are turning yellow. Eesh. My minor traffic offenses, which could be debatable. I don't think I've made any violations I couldn't defend in court or will be thrown out on their merit. So, and again, your business acumen switches off. It's a great view. It's a great view of the city. One thing I do enjoy was driving now. I said, you got to make an adaptation. You got to constantly be adapting. I said that in the beginning of this video. I've traveled to California and now I no longer do that anymore. And I work in Philadelphia now. And I went from working 5 days a week to 5 days a month to 5 days a week. I'm full time now. And does that mean my business is failing? No. It just means that I had to do other things. I had to change up and create other measures of discipline to fill in gaps in what has now become an inflated economy. What has become my needs are much higher than my production. So I had to change up my production style to match my needs. And when you do that, it affects things. I'm not able to make at-home content like I used to. I've had to talk more about the mindset with the things associated with me being a business owner, stuff I never did because all my videos were somewhat land-centric. And when they were land-centric, it didn't talk about one of the things that were necessary, which was this need to express the mind that has to be able to be a landowner, the mindset required. But again, because I have a mind set on business, I use this opportunity to hopefully create valuable content conveniently on my way to work. Because I had to think of ways to be able to overcome and adapt my measure of discipline. I mean, most people are on their phone, listening to music, playing games, putting on makeup, because we've seen that in this journey. We've seen people putting on makeup. And it does allow me time to get business focused because when I get into this car, I'm either sometimes inspired or I have a self-awareness of something that I want to talk about. These is no different than parents talking to their children. Because again, my kids may not always have the opportunity to hear my voice when they're teenagers, but they can hear the things that I'm talking about now that still will apply to them as they begin their journeys into adulthood. Because I'm talking to the adults now, the requirement will still be the same for you. I'm not going to talk about whether AI is, you will or will not have that job at this point. I'm going to talk about the fact that you're going to be required to do some of the same markers no matter what. You're going to have the same survival skills. You're going to have the same business acumen. You're never going to be faced with the time, or at least right now in the foreseeable future, where you're not going to have your business acumen ready when you're talking. You are a person who has means, and you're dealing with a person that you could potentially give your bloodline away to, and you will not give them your name. You are still going to be faced with the decision of family members putting pressure on you to buy things, to get them things that you financially do not see as a fiscally good responsibility or measure you should take at that time. You're going to disagree with that. And are you going to cave or stand tall? You are still going to have those decisions that you're faced with. That is not going to be removed from you. And those are the things that we discuss. Those power dynamics are going to always be there. And the question is, what are you going to do? What are you going to do about it? And you could change this video away and go look at some blonde girl with a butt doing a dance, or a group of girls that have a new TikTok dance right now. You can take some time out to learn something that you're going to need to do in life. I may not be able to show you how to be a millionaire yet, but I can show you how to start being successful and at least get on the path. And hell, you might get further than I did. And that's fine with me. Because again, I ain't never been a player hater, man. Congratulator, but never a player hater. But my question is, what are you going to do? And it don't matter if you were a millionaire and you went broke. The question is, how do you finish? Told my father that one time, Dad, I may not have everything everyone has right now, but when I finish, I'm going to be right where the people who always had, where they end up at, I'll be right there with the haves. The only point is how you finish. I'm going to challenge you to finish up strong, but you're not going to do that at the last hour. You're not going to get that at the last hour. That's like a kid that studies the night before thinking they're going to pass. It wouldn't have been you wouldn't have all that pressure if you prepared yourself. So again, folks, prepare yourself in life. But it starts with your own internal measure of discipline. I'm going to challenge you on that. Last but not least, folks, my book is on Amazon. You know I'm going to get to the book, right? Getting Dollars from Dirt, A Beginner's Guide to Vacant Land Investing, by yours truly, written by yours truly. This handsome face right here, wrote that book. Yes, I did. And talk about it and be about it because I lived it and did it. Ownership is always what we talk about. I hope you've been educated. You can see right here the Drexel University. There's a Lebo College of Business too as well. Even when I do work, I'm surrounded by doctors and people of means and wealth. I'm always connected to the point where I can reach out and ask someone or use my network of resources. So don't look at me as that, oh, I've got a 9-to-5 job. No, what I've got is doctors asking me to work in their private practices because of my abilities. I have the benefit of making decisions that I can do to change my life in multi directions, which means that the end all be all of my success lies in my choice. Whether I do or don't do, the pathway still leads me down the road to the same outcome. Now, I'm going to tell you something about this building here on the left, this glass building or this building with these windows. Man, I've only worked at this job about 5 months and they built this up super quick, man. I watched them put all those windows in and day out, man. A hell of a job. It's crazy how well humans can build up. Another skyscraper, another high-rise building going up. It's very interesting, folks. Any which way, I'm Phil Davis, Ancestry Lands, ancestrylands.com. Go get a property, folks. Remember, I hope you've been educated, enlightened, and least of all, entertained. You better own property before you be owned as property. You always heard it here, folks. Take care.
Are you confused with today's real estate market? With high interest rates and overpriced housing, it can be hard to find something to own at the right price. Available on Amazon, Getting Dollars from Dirt by author Philip H. Davis is a game-changing book that invites you to embark on a thrilling exploration of this often overlooked asset class. This book is your roadmap to unlocking the secrets of vacant land investment. Inside these pages, you will uncover the transformative power of vacant land as a wealth-building tool. Discover how to spot promising properties, assess their true value, and capitalize on market trends. From understanding zoning and permits to leveraging financing strategies, you'll gain the knowledge and confidence to make savvy investment decisions. With each page you turn, you'll gain a deeper understanding of the profound impact your investments can have on the world around you. Getting Dollars from Dirt is not just a guidebook, it's a call to action. Whether you're a seasoned investor or a curious novice, this book will empower you to tap into the immense potential of vacant land and embark on a journey toward financial freedom and a brighter future.